Welcome back to the Sporting Eyes show for the 30th of January. I hope you're all doing well. We have a lot of news to get to, not all of it's good because of the injury carnage. But I want to start with the AFL's most secretive club, the Geelong Football Club, who are looking to strike again. Now, it was reported early this week that Mitch Cleary from Channel 7 said that Geelong, namely Chris Scott and Andrew Mackie, met with Matt Rowell in the off-season to discuss his future. Now, he's obviously out of contract, and there's a couple directions we can go with this, but I'm going to park Matt Rowell and his play style for another day and focus on Geelong. A lot of people don't like Geelong, and I think the main reason is because they've been so successful for such a long period of time, and that can annoy people. And to be honest, it kind of annoys me as a Bulldog supporter watching how good Geelong are basically every season. Do they have a bit of a dodgy track record? In a way, kind of. There was Bailey Smith, Cotton On, Chris Scott and Morris Finance, where he's a quote-unquote leadership consultant. And then Joel Selwood, who was reported in the Herald Sun, had loaned money about 10 years ago to a person connected with the Geelong Football Club who got caught up in a bit of a charity scam, and that Joel Selwood collected or was supposed to collect interest on that loan to this person. So there's always been a conspiracy theory around Geelong that they underpay their players and that their major sponsors make up for it. Now, I would say that's probably not true because the AFL would have discovered it by now, and it would be remarkable if they were getting away with this basically salary cap cheating the whole time. But maybe do they push the limits and explore the boundaries of the salary cap? I reckon they do. I reckon they can manipulate it to the best of their own interests, and they seem to be getting away with it, and it seems to be working. Now, if I was a player and I had no connection to a club, I didn't like an AFL club or support one, and I had to pick a list of 4 or 5 to go to have the best possible chance of having, say, a 200-game career and being a good AFL player, I think Geelong would be 1 or 2 on my list. That's how well they're run. We know they have great leadership with Chris Scott. Patrick Dangerfield's the AFLPA president. He's their captain. And Steve Hocking is the CEO. So they're such a well-run club, great resources, great lifestyle, about, an hour and a half out of Melbourne, nice and rural, pretty quiet, and I think that's why they attract a lot of players. And it's no doubt what they're pitching to Matt Rowell. So we might not like Geelong, we might even hate them, but deep down I think we all admire how well run they are and that they keep getting these good players that either go to their club or want to go to their club. Now, the other side of this is with Gold Coast and the AFL, who probably aren't happy about this. Mac Andrews signed till 2030 and beyond, Noah Anderson 2027, and I think for Matt Rowell to leave, it would be a killer blow to the Gold Coast Suns, who look like they're finally building together with a lot of Victorian talent. And for Rowell to leave, I think it would continue on the narrative forever that Gold Coast just won't be able to keep all their star players, especially those from Victoria. That's how pivotal I think this decision is, just in a long-term perspective of the Gold Coast Suns and therefore the AFL. So we'll see how it plays out. I still think he'll stay at Gold Coast. I think he's just exploring all of his options, but I'm pretty confident he'll stay with his best mate Noah Anderson and try and build something at the Gold Coast Suns. Now, another club trying to build something is St Kilda, and they haven't had a whole lot of luck on the injury front. Matthias Philippou is the big one, stress fracture in his femur, and that was followed up by Rowan Marshall, who's had back problems and a fracture in his pelvis, which is definitely not very good at this stage of the year. Now, Philippou will be out for about 12 weeks, I think, and Rowan Marshall, it's unclear, but looking likely he'll miss maybe the first round or 2. And this is a killer blow for St Kilda, no doubt, and it really hurts Ross Lyon and the resources he's got. With those 2 out and Paddy Dow recovering from an infection, there are only 2 pure on-ballers, Jack McRae, who they got from the Bulldogs, and Jack Steele, and they're basically the same player. In and under, tough. They're pretty productive, gets you 25 disposals, 5 clearances a game, but they aren't the breakaway speed that they need that they look like maybe Dow or Philippou could have provided. So the next layer is Hunter Clark. Well, he's injury prone and can also play in defence. Jack Sinclair, who will probably have to play on ball, but I think Ross Lyon prefers him in a half-back flank role. Windhager, who's more of a tagger, and Darcy Wilson, who was normally, he was used as a winger last year, and is only a second-year player. So a weakness for St Kilda, just got even weaker, I think, and I don't think if you're a St Kilda fan, you'll be feeling that great heading into the year with a weakened midfield that really only has two kind of stars of note in Jack Steele and Jack McRae. So it's a big worry for St Kilda. Hopefully they can get some injury luck, but they might have to get creative, maybe put Nasai Wanganeen Malira in there, maybe give Liam Henry some centre bounces as well. So we'll see what Ross Lyon and his coaching group can do with their midfield. Now I want to move on to a bit of a new game, big or small deal. With all these injuries, instead of going through each of them individually in a long segment, we're going to see if they're a big deal or a small deal. So that's coming up next. Alrighty, we've got a fair few injuries to get through, and we're going to put we have a fair few injuries to get through in this segment. So let's kick it off with Tim English, who recently had an abdominal injury. Now I'm going to say this is a small deal. Now the club hasn't clarified his full timeline. He is in modified training, but he did train on Wednesday, and it looks like he'll go up with the Bulldogs on camp, but just won't participate in their match simulation in Queensland. So I'm going to say it's a small deal right now, but clearly if he doesn't train within a couple of weeks, it'll turn into a big deal. Next up is Jordan Ridley from Essendon with a hamstring. This is a big deal. Their defence was really leaky at the back end of last year. Ben Mackay hasn't entered full training. I think he's got an ankle injury. So it basically leaves Zach Reid and Jaden Laverde left. And with Ridley doing a hamstring, we know he had the quad injury last year, which limited him to 17 games. This is a big deal, and it's getting really annoying because Jordan Ridley on his day is one of the better intercepting third tall defenders. So this is a big deal. George Wardlaw, this came out yesterday. Big blow for North Melbourne, one of their important on-ballers. He's their real in and under on-baller, and he has a hamstring injury. Again, the severity at the time of recording this is not known. This is a big deal, really important to their grunt work, because they have outside flair. We know Sheezel was an outside player, Luke Davis-Uniacke, and even Tom Powell to an extent. So without George Wardlaw, that midfield bull they don't really have. And then next up, Josh Smiley and Josh Gibkiss from Richmond. Now Gibkiss did the ACL last year, so I'm going to say he's a small deal. He's probably about 2 or 3 months behind where they would like him to be, but he's a long-term prospect. I think he's going to be a really good player. They just need to take their time with him. And Josh Smiley's got a minor hamstring, so I'm going to say it's a small deal. Unclear if he was kind of burning up the track enough to be a possibility in round one. I'm unsure about that, but they're both small deals for Richmond. And then the last one with West Coast is Liam Baker, who just had an ankle injury at training. Again, it's unclear the severity of it, but it looks like it's not good. That's a big deal. And the bigger deal is Elliot Yeo, who obviously is signed for 3 more years, who's got a bad knee and ankle injury combination. I think he got kind of messed up in a tackle drill at training. So that's really, really bad news for Andrew McQualter. If he's down those 2 players, then it's going to be a rough start for the year for West Coast, you would think. So that's big or small deal for a bunch of the injuries. Hopefully I don't have to do this segment again because a lot of players are going down injured. But next up, we'll move to Adelaide and have a look at one of their stars in Isaac Rankine. Now, I haven't really spoken too much about either of the South Australian clubs, but I will focus on Adelaide for a little bit. They've had a lot of training reports coming out that James Peatling, Isaac Cumming, and Alex Neil-Bullen are all progressing well and fitting in nicely, which is good for Adelaide fans. I want to focus on Isaac Rankine, who I think will be the story of Adelaide in 2025. If he can play well, then I think Adelaide will be fine. And if he struggles and has injury issues or more suspension troubles, I think the Crows are in big trouble. Last year, to me, he elevated himself into a top 10 player in the competition. And I think he's their most valuable player and he's their best player. Jordan Dawson's great. Big fan of Jordan Dawson, one of the best trade-ins for quite a while for the Adelaide Crows. He's a really good player, superstar player, and importantly, a good captain that I think the players do believe in. But Isaac Rankine is just a level above. I'm going to focus on his 15 games, but especially the last 11. Now, Adelaide lost the first 4 games of the year, which put them well behind the pack. And from round 5 onwards, Isaac Rankine began to shift to that midfield role. He played roughly 50%, attended roughly 50% of the centre bounces in those final 11 games, and Adelaide won 5 of them, lost 5, and drew. So with Rankine essentially playing 50-50 midfield and forward time, Adelaide were about a 500 team. And I think that's the impact Rankine has. He can improve them by playing in the midfield 3 or 4 wins a year. And I think their final record, compared to their record when he was in the midfield, basically proves that. He was rated the 9th best player by player ratings. If you have an issue with them, that's fine, but they did rank him the 9th best. How many players do we see have goal kicking issues and accuracy problems? Well, not Rankine. 29 goals, 9 behinds, and he averaged 18 disposals and 2 goals per game. He was just phenomenal. He's moved into Adelaide's most valuable player, and I think he balances out with his dynamic pace, his skill, and his speed. Balances out guys like Sam Berry, Matt Crouch, Rory Laird, who looks like he's moving back to defence, and Jake Saligo. He's the one. Him and Dawson give them the point of difference on ball, and Rankine's the biggest factor for Adelaide going into 2025. So another bit of news was to do with the Brisbane Lions and their links with West Coast co-captain Oscar Allen. Now this is a bit bizarre, but also a little interesting on a couple of fronts. On face value, do I think this has any chance of getting done? I'll give it about a 1% shot. Oscar Allen's obviously the co-captain of West Coast, one of the most powerful clubs, and he's from WA, so it's rare to see a combination of a captain of the club and a player from a state leave interstate up to Queensland. I'm not sure that's ever happened before, and I just doubt it will happen again. Now, Brisbane obviously need to replace long-term Oscar Allen. They got in Sam Day from Gold Coast, who I think was delisted. And I'm not sure that they trust in Eric Hipwood. I think Logan Morris will be a good player, but he's still only entering his 2nd season. Now, Oscar Allen himself, to me, he's a good player who's had one great year. In 2023, I believe he kicked 53 goals in about 20 games in a really bad team, historically bad team, and was one of the better contested marks in the competition. Since then, he struggled last year with injury. I think he only managed 11 games. And before that season, he was kind of a swingman between the forward line and defence. But he is coming into his prime, and he's out of contract as a restricted free agent. So that's important to note that if Brisbane offer him $1 million, then West Coast can match that and either force a trade or force Oscar Allen to stay if Brisbane don't want to give up, the draft picks or players to give to West Coast. So overall, it's a bit of strange news to me to be released at this time of the year, heading into the new season for West Coast, who are entering an important period of their evolution. So if his management leaked it, seems a little selfish to me that perhaps you want a few more dollars from the Eagles. And if Brisbane leaked it, I'm not really sure what the whole point of that is. So a bit of strange news. We'll see how it plays, obviously, throughout the year. But a lot of contract stuff coming up before the season even starts, which is bizarre. I don't think we would have seen things like this for a while. But again, we'll see how it plays out. And I think West Coast fans should still be confident that Oscar Allen will stay probably for the long term. Thanks for watching the Sporting Eyes show for the 30th of January. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll be back on Monday.